And so we've reached the last day of 2023. And I thought it would be appropriate for me to conclude with a message to all of those who've been my loyal supporters in my Crosshairs Twitter spaces and also in my Crosshairs YouTube channel. I also thought it would be appropriate to do it in a way that would leave no one with any misunderstanding about where I stand right now and the decisions that I've taken that will also carry me into the year 2024. That is why you see me sitting here this afternoon as I'm making this concluding message for the year of 2023 in my Economic Freedom Fighters golf shirt. I'm making a statement to those who have warmly welcomed me in the EFF, but as much to those who have criticized me for having taken this decision to become a fighter in the Economic Freedom Fighters. Let me first of all make it absolutely clear. I have carefully and in a very balanced and ideologically correct way decided to join the Economic Freedom Fighters. This was no flash in the pan decision, nor was it a flash in the pan decision for the leadership of my former political party, the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance. Anyone who says that this was a rash decision, that wasn't carefully considered and didn't take all the various dynamics in our economic environment into consideration, are entirely wrong. Let me assure you that the National Working Board of ARETA, which was the highest decision-making body of ARETA as a political party, discussed and considered our options and what the best way is that we can make a decisive contribution to the future of South Africa, to the reshaping of the political landscape, and especially with regards to our commitment to foster unity amongst the progressive left. The result of the decision of the National Working Board of the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance to join the Economic Freedom Fighters, to put it correctly, to call on all the members of ARETA to join in their individual capacity as members of the Economic Freedom Fighters, and for ARETA not to register for the upcoming elections, in fact, to wind up its activities, was the result of hours and hours of discussion between all the members of the National Working Board. We came to a unanimous conclusion that the best way in order to contribute to unity amongst the progressive left is not to continue with the proliferation of small and factional and fractional political parties, but to try and do everything within our means to bring down the number of left progressive parties that are registered for the elections of 2024. In fact, we expressed the hope after these hours long of conversation that it should be possible to unite all the progressive left political parties under one strong left progressive political party that has proved its mettle, that has shown that it has the organizational capacity, and that has proved that it can mobilize huge numbers of supporters. We also stated unequivocally that we do not want to see a proliferation of political parties with their logos and all the confusion that that brings on a very long ballot paper. In fact, the shorter the ballot paper, the clearer the choice for the people of South Africa, and the better we can unite behind one progressive left political party to represent the ideals for fundamental transformation, for indeed the rolling out of radical economic transformation, and to bring about economic freedom in our lifetime. So much the better. After very careful analysis, we could not come to any other conclusion but that the only political party on the spectrum of the progressive left that has the capacity to be the lead party, to be the uniting force in order to be able to challenge the sell-out African National Congress government or any possible sell-out coalition that can eventually fall after the elections of 2024 is indeed the economic freedom fighters. As the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance's National Working Board, we took a very careful look at our own policy programs, our own policy documents, and we also studied the documents of the economic freedom fighters, the constitution of the EFF, the 7 cardinal pillars of the economic freedom fighters. And our conclusion was that there's very little difference between the radical economic transformation policy positions that we espoused in Areta and the fundamental positions espoused by the economic freedom fighters. So then, of course, the next logical question was, why should we be 2 different parties when ideologically there is hardly any difference? And once we asked that question, the only possible answer that could translate from that question being dissected and taken seriously was that we would only continue with the proliferation of political parties and Areta will continue with its existence if we are more concerned about positions for ourselves, the promotion of our own individual names, rather than the concept of true radical economic transformation in the most united form possible. Once we made that analysis, it became very easy for the National Working Board of Areta to say, let's join the economic freedom fighters. Let's not be part of the fractional, divisional politics of the left, but let's take a position of leadership. Let's lead by example and call on the membership of the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance to join the EFF. Another issue that played central in our thinking was our analysis of what the African National Congress in fact had become over many decades. And that analysis was not a beautiful picture, because it told us that the ANC in its core had become fundamentally rotten. We analyzed that the ANC always had the tendency not just to be a progressive party, but also to be a reactionary, elitist, and even possibly right-wing party. Those elements were always there. But for a very long time in the history of the ANC, and especially because of the influence of the South African Communist Party and the trade union movement, during the heyday of their strength within the alliance, the more progressive component of the ANC prevailed. However, our analysis was, with the advent of the negotiations at CODESA and the compromises that were made through the CODESA negotiations and the resultant new liberal constitution that was adopted, and the progressive introduction of neoliberal economic policies that destroyed the radical economic transformation agenda that had been part of the ANC's policy program and are articulated in the various strategy and tactics documents of the ANC during the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. That had consistently and with a very deliberate program of erosion been marginalized within the ANC. To the point where the African National Congress today has the right-wing, elitist, pro-capitalist component of the ANC at the center of the organization. In fact, it permeates the whole of the African National Congress from top to bottom. The reality is that when we complain about the sell-out African National Congress of today, we are not simply complaining about Cyril Ramaphosa and a couple of his acolytes, but we're talking about an organization that has comprehensively betrayed the liberation left progressive agenda, to such a point that our analysis is that the ANC had become an instrument for white monopoly capitalist continued control, that it had become an instrument of imperialism, and that it can no longer represent the true hopes and ideals of the people of South Africa. That the corrupt nature and the corrosive influence of money in the ANC had eroded the structures of the ANC at every possible level, from branch to national, to such an extent that the ANC is indeed today a criminal enterprise. It cannot be saved. And I think I want you to listen to me. I want you to understand the importance of this statement that I've just made. The African National Congress cannot be saved. It has run its course. It has lost the path of liberation. It has become infiltrated from top to bottom, and more than just infiltrated, it has become, in its essence, in its nature, in its character, a reactionary, sell-out organization. Now, I'm not saying this easily, and I'm not saying it without a lack of experience, because I've been a member of the ANC for 43 years. And for a very substantial part of that time, I've been fighting against these reactionary forces these sell-out tendencies, these new liberal policy programs within the ANC. Personally, I believe that I've done everything within my means and my ability, everything that was humanly possible, to resist and fight those tendencies. I do not want to make this a personal statement, but those who watch this video will recall the numerous times that I've even stood alone fighting these tendencies, insisting that Cyril Ramaphosa, who is the expression, the incarnation of the disaster that the ANC had become, should go. I did not succeed, nor did anyone else within the African National Congress succeed to save the ANC from the disaster that it had become. And I repeat again, I've done everything humanly possible within my means to fight against those reactionary sell-out tendencies. My conclusion, and the conclusion of the National Working Board of ARETA, was very clear. The ANC cannot be saved. And having made that assessment, we have to be clear and unequivocal in the next consequence that leads from that assessment. And that is, therefore, it would be a contradiction. In fact, a contradiction in terminus. For us who have made this assessment and have come to this conclusion, then to become part of a project which states up front that its most critical intention is to save the ANC. Our assessment is that that is not possible. In fact, that it would lead us down a road of wasted energy, of created expectations that cannot be met, and ultimately of failure. Honesty, in terms of our own analysis of the non-possibility, the no chance whatsoever assessment that we've made, that the ANC can return to its original historical liberation roots, must lead us to a point where we say, we will not be part of a project to try and save the African National Congress. That would be dishonest. It would be wasted time and energy. It will not contribute to the liberation of the people of this country. In fact, it will be counterproductive for the implementation of the fundamental radical economic transformation changes that needs to be introduced in South Africa if we want to save our country and if we want to meet the hopes and the needs of our people. Now, I'm not here today on this last day of 2023 to campaign or de-campaign anyone. I'm simply here to state the assessment that we have made, which brought us to the point where we decided that as individual members of ARETA, and when I mean by me, I mean the National Working Board of ARETA, that we must join the economic freedom fighters. I do not want to campaign or de-campaign the MK party, but I'm certainly clear that if there's an intention by anyone, including the MK party, to try and save the African National Congress, it is a wrong assessment of what is possible. It will be a waste of true revolutionary energy. And personally, I'm certainly not prepared to be part of such a project. So as I'm sitting here today, I want to make it clear to all of those who've criticized me for having joined the economic freedom fighters and not having joined the MK party. I knew very well that the MK party was going to be announced by President Zuma. He shared all the detail with me. In a discussion that I had with President Zuma, I also articulated to him exactly the concerns that I've now articulated in this YouTube video. And I explained to President Zuma why I will not see my way open to be part of the MK party, especially because of its expressed commitment to this, what I believe to be a farcical, non-achievable project of wanting to save the African National Congress. I wish all of those who have decided to join the MK party well. Certainly, your decision to join the MK party helps to weaken the ANC, and that must be welcomed. But with the analysis that I've just shared with you, and the conviction that I personally have, and the conviction that the National Working Board of ARETA, when it still existed, expressed, it would be most dishonest for me to try and associate myself with a project of trying to save the ANC. So let me express the hope that it would be possible for all the various left progressive forces in South Africa, all the various left progressive political parties, and among those I also include the MK party, to find a way of working together. I want to once again congratulate President Zuma on the courageous decision that he had finally taken to announce that he will not campaign for the ANC, and that he encourages South Africans to vote for the MK party. I hope, although I have a different analysis about what can be achieved with regards to the erstwhile liberation movement, the sell-out, now Trojan horse of imperialism and of the continuing subjugation of the people of South Africa, that we will be able to work together. Certainly not on a project to save the ANC, but on a commitment to understand what are the fundamental transformatory steps that need to be taken. What must be that minimum program of action for the implementation of radical economic transformation? And that must be done by a united progressive entity, which is not going to be the African National Congress, because I don't believe the ANC will be part of a true progressive transformation in South Africa, but a left progressive force aligned on the basis of a minimum program of action for the implementation of radical economic transformation in order to bring about economic freedom in our lifetime. I'm still of the opinion that the economic freedom fighters, having proved itself as a strong left, black, progressive political party with the hard work and the determined input of its leadership under the capable leadership of the Commander-in-Chief, Comrade Julius Malema, will play the leading role in achieving that objective. I remain 100% committed to a program for unity which must include all left progressive political parties. And I hope that the MK party will certainly be part of such a project. Because ultimately, it is my conviction that history will prove me correct, that the ANC had run its course. It can no longer be saved. It can no longer bring fundamental economic transformation and full liberation to the people of South Africa. It has been hollowed out. It is destroyed. It is rotten from top to toe. It cannot be salvaged. Having stated that, let me stay within the commitment that I've made in the statement when we announced that ARETA is now calling on all its members as individuals to join the economic freedom fighters. That I do all of this in the understanding, and that we as a national working board do all of it in the understanding that there must be progressive left unity in our country. That progressive left unity must mean that all the various progressive left political parties have to unite. We must find the right formula. As my statement said on that Thursday when I announced that we are now joining the economic freedom fighters, we must be able to work together, hopefully before the elections, but even after the elections, with one singular objective, and that is to bring an end to the sell-out African National Congress's reign. Because over the past 30 years, it has proved to be disastrous for the people of South Africa, and it is destroying the hopes of our nation. So, as the old year leaves us and the new year comes in, may I once again call on all of those who have been members of the African Radical Economic Transformation Alliance to join the economic freedom fighters, to sign up in your individual capacities, to become ground forces for the EFF, to make sure that you acquaint yourself with the EFF's policy positions, and to make sure that you will make a contribution to grow the EFF into the central, critical, strong force that is required for us to have a united left, led by a party that has proved itself in terms of its organizational capacity and leadership capabilities to be able to bring about the fundamental change that our country so urgently desires. So my call is to all the former members of ARETA. If you haven't yet signed up as members of the EFF, make it your singular duty to do so as soon as you can during the new year. Make sure that you fit into the structures of the economic freedom fighters, that you're part of the branch, that you contribute to the ensuing campaign for the upcoming elections of 2024. that in the month of January you will make your contribution to make sure that we will fill the Moses Mabhida Stadium to the rafters with members of the economic freedom fighters from all over South Africa, to make sure that you play your role in contributing to reaching out to fellow comrades in other progressive political formations and calling on them to make unity the central pillar, left progressive unity, the central pillar of their work and their activities. All of us who are committed to these ideals must speak out against anyone who tries to drive wedges and divisions amongst the left. We must avoid attacking each other. We must avoid silly little factional comments. We must avoid denouncing people for having made their personal decisions to join a particular political formation within the progressive left. That is the commitment that I call for, and that is the commitment that I hope all of you in this new year, in this time of fundamental change that 2024 must be, will dedicate yourselves to. Because if it is only if we work for unity, if we dedicate ourselves to become one as a progressive left force, that we will be able to make that wish that we have expressed, the wish that 2024 must become our 1994, will become true. I wish all of you a very happy, progressive, and successful 2024. And above all, a united 2024, built on a program of ideological clarity, on soundness, not on the drift sand of the idea that a party that has left its way, that has lost its progressive character, that has become rotten to the core, can be saved. It is not about saving the ANC. That is long gone. It's over. Finish and clear. It is about saving our country, saving our nation. That is what our commitment must be. Let us not allow ourselves to be distracted by projects that cannot work, that will fail, and will ultimately only defocus us from the real objective. And that is to unite as a left progressive force in this country for the implementation of a minimum program of action that will truly bring economic freedom in our lifetime. May 2024 bring the revolution that we have all hoped for far too long. Now is the time for it to come to fruition. Second Jalu, now is the time. Aluta continua.